Thank you. This session is being taped. This is welcome to the 38th CALLERLAB Convention. Today is April 18th. The name of this session is simply Soapbox. And I've been to, this is my 17th convention. I don't recall this subject, this kind of thing ever being done before, but hopefully it'll be a first. We'll kick it off and it'll be productive for the future. I'm Ron Markus is my name. I'm from Tucson, Arizona. Been calling about 39 years down there. I call for one club there. I don't do any traveling or anything anymore. And there are no panelists. It's just me and you. So I'm the moderator, and then it's not something I guess that would lend itself to having a panel, as it were. So you said you had a concern that is in your area. Let's get you on the mic, and maybe some other people have the same concern, have the same issue, and maybe we could talk about it. Give us your name and where you're from.
Okay, I am Jerry Thompson from Paradise, California, and we have a great club up there. My husband is the caller, and the club just celebrated their 54th anniversary. We are a destination in and of itself. Travelers do not go through, and our club membership is declining. They are very getting elderly, but they're very, very energetic. How does the caller's partner deal with club members that are, I guess I have to say, some are very opinionated, stubborn, and they want it run the way it always has been run, and it's detrimental. I mean, I don't like to be negative and be taped on this, but, you know, we want the club to succeed. We want them to be successful. And does anybody else have any ideas on how to work with a club that needs to bend a little bit and grow? Unfortunately, they're not as welcoming to new dancers as they should be.
All right, so the issue with your particular club is declining membership, aging of dancers, and how can a caller's partner specifically help alleviate the problem? Okay, and how can a club become more friendly, and then maybe not cliques necessarily, but just not known as the friendliest club in the area? Do you have a lot of clubs in your area? Just one, that's it. How far away are the other dancers? Any other dancers within 50 miles or 30 miles, or how far would dancers have to go? Hour and a half away. Oh, that's why you're an island up there. All right, anybody have a comment on that issue? Have a comment as how a caller's partner specifically can help with declining membership, friendliness, as it were, of the or lack thereof in the club. Give us your name and where you're from.
Louis Friedlander from Lansing, Michigan. I am not a caller. I am a dancer. So I throw a little different perspective on this than a lot of people. I know a lot of caller and their wives, and I have a good friend of mine whose wife at every dance is probably the one leading everything. She's leading all the hooplas. She screams, she hollers, she greets everybody, and it's hard to maintain that, okay? And she'll come right out and tell you, it's hard for me to do this at every dance. But by doing it, she has become the leader in the club, or the leader in the clubs, per se. No, she's not an officer in the club, and she doesn't really have a say in the club, but if she recommends something, people listen. And this is, yes, it's difficult. I started a mainstream club 4 or 5 years ago and invited that caller to call for my mainstream club. We meet twice a month, second and fourth Fridays. And I invited him to come call just because of her, pretty much, because she throws the energy into the club. Okay? And people come back because the club is fun. And a lot of it's her. And a lot of it's the people running the club has to pick up that energy also.
If you've got somebody in your group who's a spark plug, and that's what I would call this person. She's the spark plug. She's the live wire. If you've got somebody like that, unless they get overbearing about it, you have to be cautious about being too much of a spark plug. If they get overbearing about it, then it gets like a little bit too much, and too much of a good thing is just that, too much. So, but you have to, you can watch it and see if it's going the wrong way and that sort of thing. But if you've got somebody who is good at being a spark plug, and people come to this club that you've started because of this person and because of the fun there, then that's certainly one way to do it, and not everybody's lucky enough in their group. I don't know if you have anybody like that in your group, or if you could yourself assume that responsibility or that role. Some people are not as outgoing as others. Some people are more outgoing than others. So if you could assume that role, or if there's somebody in the group or a group of people in your club that could help with that kind of role, the spark plug type of role, that would be one possibility you could explore. Yeah.
Norm Croshaw from California. Is this Paradise over by Cambria? Didn't you say Paradise, California? Oh, Marysville up there. Okay. Another question, is this a caller run group or a dancer run group? Okay. On a dancer run group is a dancer run group. You have to become a great manipulator. And that is what I'm saying is that when I was a kid, I had no good ideas. My dad would shoot down everything I ever thought of. I learned that if I wanted to get something done, I had to start 2 or 3 months ahead of time, suggesting it to him periodically until it became his idea. Okay? In your opinionated dancers, they're hard to work with. Okay? You need to talk to them periodically and enter ideas to them and let them think about it and do it often enough that they begin to think it's their idea. Okay? It goes over a lot easier that way. It's a hard thing to do. You have to be proficient in manipulation. It sounds bad. It will work in most cases. I will not guarantee, but in most cases. But you have to have finesse to make them think it's their idea and it would benefit their club. In the being nice to beginners, it's the fact of, do you want beginners to keep your club going? If you don't want beginners to keep your club going, then the price of your admission has got to go up to keep your club going. If you're willing to pay $10 a head every single night you come in here so that we have a treasury to keep this club going, then go ahead and do that. If you don't want the price, or even if you have to go $15 a head to keep this thing going, fine. That's the way you want it. But if you want new blood into here and help pay the bills for this club to allow yourself to dance cheaply, then you got to welcome new dancers into the program.
And the business of welcoming people into, I'll get you just a minute, into the business of welcoming people, I started calling for this one club in Tucson, about 20 miles north of Tucson, actually, is Sun City, Tucson. It's a retirement community. It's not a snowbird community with mobile homes and motorhomes and that sort of thing, but they're all permanent homes. But there are 2,500 homes in this one area, and then there are outlying areas, smaller developments around us. So it's probably 5,000 to 6,000 homes altogether in this one area that we're in. And when I first started calling for them, the club had their reputation was they're not the friendliest group in the world, and it was kind of cliquey and so forth. And I said, okay, we're changing that. And the first thing I did is I started going. I stood at the door. They didn't have a formal greeting program for greeters to be at every dance, but I stood at the door. I got there well enough in advance to set up my equipment and everything, and I stood at the door and said hello to everybody as they came in. And pretty soon people going, well, that's different. Well, I kind of like that. Well, next thing that happened is a month or so later, the club instituted what they called the greeter program. They had a couple assigned, would sign up on a sign-up sheet, And with enough couples in the club, you do this like every 3 months or 4 months or something, just to greet people as they come in the door. Give them a hug, give them a handshake. How you doing? Nice seeing you. Glad you're around. This sort of thing. And then I did the same thing at the end of the dance. When I was finished dancing, finished calling, and the dance was over, I didn't just start packing up equipment and get boxes out and whatnot. I said, okay, we're going to go back to the door and thank everybody for coming. And, you know, you can put humor into it, too. You know, hope you enjoyed the sermon. You know, this sort of thing. You put humor into it, but eventually the club got the idea. Like you were saying, you're manipulating. You were putting the idea. There's no more powerful idea than one that somebody thinks is theirs. And if you can put the seed in, as what was it, Norman? As Norman said, if you could put the seed in somebody's head that it's their idea, well, they're going to be behind it a whole lot more than if somebody just said, hey, this is a good idea. Well, okay, I'll give you a hand. It'd be a lot more powerful a tool. But that's something you can do right out of the chute to help to get the friendliness of the club and the greeter program and the caller himself or you and him at the door at the end of the night, thanking everybody for coming and this sort of thing. Any other comments? You had one.
Pam Clasper from Toronto, Canada. One little suggestion right off the bat is tomorrow afternoon there's a partner session, which is a closed door. So go to that. You may get some ideas there. Does the club have a beginner group, or is there a beginner group in the area? Started one and they didn't feel welcome, so they didn't stay. Because there's a sort of a story, a club up near Toronto, a couple hours northeast of Toronto, and one couple in the club actually sort of spearheaded it. But people wanted to start a beginner group. They felt that there was it's a small town, but there's an awful lot of other smaller towns around, and they felt there might be enough to start a beginner group. The club was a plus club, and they weren't interested in starting a beginner group. So one couple from the club went out. They actually hired another caller. If your husband is interested in doing it himself, that would be fine. And they put a lot of work into it. They went to churches. They went to any place people might gather. They put up flyers, got permission to put up flyers, got all their friends, and started a whole new club. And, this other club was still going and still dancing and doing fine. They put on a big festival once a year, and they were doing fine. But they started this beginner program, and they had like 3 or 4 squares. Those brought their friends. They had to start another group in January with another 4 or 5 squares. Then they started another. They've got like 8 or 9 squares dancing now, beginners. And the original club has discovered how much fun this is. And this past January, my husband is teaching beginners as well in a town about an hour and a half away from there. He's got a couple of squares. He's working through a senior center. And in January, this club held a dance for beginners for what they all knew so far. We had 15 squares at that dance. And this is all from small towns. There's nothing in Toronto. This big city of 2 million people, there's nothing. This is from all the small towns around the area. There's nothing going on. So, maybe not even working through that group, but starting another group. Like I say, because this other club, they found out. Word got back. Some of the people would come, and it's like, oh man, these guys are having. And it's what I remember when we started dancing. They come with all the food and the partying and the special events and the put up a bunch of in March it was all green and then they all this kind of stuff. It's just a huge fun event for everybody. And the folks that have been dancing for ages are sort of rediscovering the fun they used to have. It's reminding them of why they got into dancing. You sort of do the same thing month after month after month, and they all just get a little jaded. So this kind of shook things up, and it's just been a boon around our area for livening up square dances and stuff.
Good success story. Good success story indeed. Have any? There you go. That's what we were going to say. Did you publish that, The Winning Ways? All right. Way to go. Okay. Another comment? Okay. Hold on. Where are you from?
Kalamazoo, Dora Olson, Kalamazoo, Michigan. Just wondered what kind of flyers they put around in small towns. That's a good idea.
Pam Clasper again. I don't know because I didn't see them. We sort of found out about these guys after the club was going, so I don't know. I do know they used word of mouth a lot because that still is one of the best ways ever. But the local churches and senior centers, Legion halls, whatever they could find that was willing to put up flyers, and I don't know, probably just invited them to a dance and held like a party night. But I know the caller who's been working with the beginners he's very good and keeps them interested in fun and that kind of stuff. And it just kind of grew from there. Like I say, they started with just this 2 or 3 squares, and next thing you know, it's going gangbusters because everybody's bringing their friends. There's a real revival going on.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Any other? So we've talked a couple of things, how to do through the greeting thing and bring fun back into your. I think that's what Pam is saying. In general, simply bring fun back in. All the things that are fun, the decorations, the party nights, the food. I don't know if you serve food or you have snacks available, that sort of thing, finger food and that sort of thing. But it's all a big package is what it is, and no one thing is more important than the other. Here you go. Name again?
Jerry Thompson from Paradise again. I thank you so much for that success story. It's very interesting because my husband, who's a caller, has also been contacted by a nearby community to start a club, and they go crazy. They are so energetic. They wear the shorts. They bring the food. They laugh. They have a fantastic time. And several of the people from the older group come down and they say, oh, my gosh, this is totally different. They love it. They go back to the Paradise group, and they try to spread the word, and it isn't received. It isn't well received. I do have to make one comment, though. In the Paradise group, there is a gentleman. He is 92 years old. He's been there every single club night. He dances every single dance, and when I can make it, I grab him, and we go out on the floor first, clap, everybody, and I give the dancers a choice to square up with us or not, because there's some that will not dance with him. Okay, that's their choice. And he won't be around forever, and I can pick him up, and I can put him where he needs to be, and I love it. He's so appreciative, and yet so many of the other club members they just reject him. It's a veterans group. We have military. I don't want to, be negative about the military, but many of the older dancers are totally set in their way. They're not open to anything new, and it's very unfortunate.
Yeah, that is unfortunate.
Yeah. So.
Is your husband the caller for the same both groups? Yeah, it's actually like night and day. It's like okay. Yeah. Well, one thing that you might think about doing is getting some visitations going back and forth between the two. How far away are they from each other? Like an hour or more? Or 45 minutes away. Maybe some visitations. As soon as the people in the non-friendly, I don't know, for lack of a better term, the non-friendly club realize what the friendly club people are like and what's going on, will they just not go? Will the fun folks come to you? Yeah. It's a big part of it is the caller, whoever the caller is. As long as the caller realizes it, keeps in mind that everything he's doing or she's doing is live entertainment. It's live. You don't get a chance to take the words back in. Prepare yourself and be ready to do what you have to do and call a lively, fun kind of a program. The wind in the face kind of thing. That's the caller's responsibility. I'm sure that he's doing that. But if the dancers are not receptive. Have you tried anything radically different than you've done before, like bring in contras, hexagon square, or not hexagon, rectangle squares? That's some of that choreography, that kind of thing. They just flat don't want to do it. So you have more of a social group than you have a square dance group. It's a social group, the square dances. Yeah, it's a coffee clutch and also square dances. Yeah. Okay. Well, I remember I called for a group like that years ago, and down in southern Arizona, and they were a group of people who knew each other, had known each other for a long time, all lived in this little town, and they were happy just to go someplace and dance. as far as getting, having the program be a good plus program or a DVD type plus program, or even a mainstream DVD type of thing, lively DVD, lively mainstream kind of program, they weren't interested in that either. They were just happy to come and visit with each other, and there was a place they could go to do that. But they came out every week to dance too. We had 4 or 5 squares. It was, eventually the club just disbanded because the people started getting older and older and moving away, and with the hip replacement, the back replacement, the knee, all this stuff. Pardon me? Yeah, and in some cases dying off. Yeah. Yes. Okay, one more.
One more little tidbit that goes along with it. That we've had some really great, enthusiastic core couples that have they would drive for like an hour, hour and a half at night to come from quite a distance because they love the club, they love the caller, they loved the situation. But then there was a lot of picky, not infighting, but just trivial picky stuff, and drove those people away. And in addition, I still work full time, so my husband now has become the cuer and caller because the cuer passed away. So we have to go early, so I can't even be there every club night because I'm just getting home from work. So that adds a little bit of more to it. But having the core people just say, hey, forget it, I'm not going to fight this, I give up. And they left.
That's too bad. It's too bad that people didn't see any other way to do it but to just leave. And we don't like it here, we're leaving. And did any of those people who liked it there try to do any kind of improvement in the club, or were they not club members or what? They were club members. Well, there was a seminar at one of the call labs here recently, probably more than once, called "Dealing with Difficult People," and you might get a hold of that. Go back into the convention tapes and look at that and listen to that one, because you've got a dilemma on your hands. You've got people who want to dance, but they don't want to dance that much. They'd rather be social. And the unfortunate part is that people who came from other places because they like the caller and they like the area and whatnot, they came and went. They didn't come and stay. And if they come and stay, that's a different story. But because the people who are there are difficult people, as from what you've said, and they're driving the people away you might have more visitors come in from whatever the distance may be, 45 minutes to an hour away, once a week, maybe twice a month, to dance with you if the difficult people weren't there. All right, maybe take a look at that. Look at the people who run the convention tapes. I think they have the tapes from prior years, and one was called, it's probably been a couple of seminars it was done, Dealing with Difficult People was the subject. Go ahead.
Pam Glassberg again. Is there anybody in this group of sort of nitpicky, difficult dancers that you could talk to one-on-one and find out what they really want? I mean, it sounds like they, like you say, they want the same old thing forever and ever and won't change anything, but they've got to realize that, it's just going to dwindle away if they keep that up. Is there somebody that that might be even maybe a ringleader of these picky people that you could talk to, or your husband could talk to one-on-one and find out what they really want out of the deal, or like the club president, if it's a club-run thing, and the caller dealing with the club president. I'm just throwing things out of my head here, but talk to them one-on-one and sort of see what does the club want. Do they realize they're going to dwindle? As Norman said, they're going to have to pay a lot more if they're going to keep it going to afford the hall and stuff, if they're going to let it dwindle away, or are they willing to maybe make some compromises to keep the club going as an active club? And sometimes if you can get one of those ringleaders sort of as a one-on-one and get them slightly on your side and start this planting seeds in their head for things, then it can spread to the others. Like I say, just a blue sky suggestion.
All right, so last comment, then. Does anybody else have another topic of any kind you want to have another? It's a whole separate issue, a whole separate topic. Okay, we'll make this the last comment on this one.
Norm Crosser from California. Has your husband met with the board of this club? I mean, at a board meeting? Have him ask the president if he can attend the next board meeting to voice something. He is the paid employee. As the paid employee, he is the one who sets the mood for dances. He is the one who is in charge of the dance as dancers are on the floor, and entertainment and program. Therefore, he needs to address the board and say, look, there is a problem. Here is the problem, and spell it out. Now, is he afraid of losing his job? Or does he care? Because if he doesn't care, let him voice his opinion. Okay? Tell him exactly how it is. You're going to either dwindle down to be nothing, or you can get new people in here and have fun. And spell it out and say, that's all I have to say. Do you have any questions? If you don't, I'll leave you to your board meeting. Short, sweet, simple, and get off the pot.
They used to call those come to Jesus meetings. This is the way it is, folks. Okay, we got another issue, a separate issue, another topic. Okay, give us your name and where you're from. And
I'm David Fullaway from Maui, Hawaii. And my topic and the subject is about change. I liked the keynote talk this morning. They were going to have a shift, which means change. We're changing. In some aspects, CALLERLAB is not a changing place. There's a lot of built-in resistance to change. But once the change comes, it comes very well and good. And we realize that square dancers, the age is getting older and older, and the young people aren't coming on. And CALLERLAB has accepted and is promoting quite a few changes, getting back into schools. Every year now for 10 of the 12 years, I've come to a seminar before CALLERLAB. And at first, CALLERLAB did not accept this basic beginning dance party seminar at all. They resisted it. They didn't advertise it. They didn't promote it much. But that has changed also. And so there is now a lot more support than there was, but still not enough. I assume there were all callers in here. Who's not a caller? Most of your partners. You're not callers. Mostly partners. Ah, good. Okay. Well, that's fine. I'm a caller, and I do my fair share of dancing parties and Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts and churches and schools, but I don't have enough time to do it all. I couldn't begin to cover all the schools and classes on Maui and all the clubs that need and want dancing. So I need help. And I need 10 people who can go to schools and teach one-night stands and parties to build up a number of people who are exposed to square dancing that will sooner or later become members of my club. And it's sort of like the young people are the lifeblood. I see Roy Gatta's here, and Betsy gave a real good seminar this morning, and how to revitalize organizations. And so that's where I'm at, and I would like to see more advertising. I would like to see you go back to your clubs and promote people. Doesn't have to be your caller. Dana Shermer was here Friday night, and I said, I hope more of these callers that are coming to the dance, the Ozzy Awards, will come and poke their head in the dance. And he says, Dave, he says, a lot of the callers don't want to be beginning party seminar leaders. They want to call, and they want to call for money and be out here. And I said, wait, I'm not talking about those people. I'm talking about the people that those people know in their community. Now, next year, there's going to be one person from Maui who's going to come to this beginning party seminar. Maybe 2 if I can work, or 5 if I can get them. But Maui's a long ways to come. It's a little more expensive. But I'm working very hard at getting some other people coming. They'll come back to Maui and get the word out and teach in the community and generate the interest. But communication is the key, and I'm glad to see Roy here because You Too Can Dance is his specialty, I believe. That's what I think needs to be done more of. I'd like to have more comments on it.
Well, the idea with the comment that the issue is how do we deal with change, and how do we deal with the changing world of square dancing as it is now, with people, as we said, going away for one reason or another, and newer people not coming in. How do people deal with that in your own area? Do you have the same problem? I shouldn't say do you have the same problem. How much of the same problem do you have? Because it's everywhere. Here we go. Name it again.
Norm Kroshoff from California. Are your schools receptive to square dancing? or have you approached your schools in that? You can shake a head, yes or no. Okay.
Dave Fuller responding to that question. What have I done? I went to the Department of Education, and I created a lesson plan series for teachers. And I got 3 outstanding callers, Cal Campbell and Paul Moore and myself, to create a seminar on Maui for teachers. And we got the place and everything. We had 1 person show up. And there were these 2, Cal and Paul, were guests in my home, and I entertained them for a week, but only 1 person showed up. So in Hawaii, we have a lesson plan for schools. And I was a teacher. And I'd go around and I'd substitute taught at these schools, and PE teachers are going out because PE is dropping. And every one of them said, Dave, I need an alternate subject. And I said, well, come to my dance seminar. And I had 10 of those PE teachers said they would come, but when they cost $250, they didn't show up. And so I've been working at it for a long time, trying to get these people involved in schools. So yes, and the schools would love me. I've got a long list of schools and names of teachers who will call me up and say, come to my class next week. And I can get paid $30 to do it. There's a fund in Hawaii for teaching things that teachers can't teach. But I can't do it all.
Olson from Michigan. My husband went to the schools to see if he could teach in some kind of program. He does not have a teaching certificate. You can't teach without a teaching certificate.
Well, you are going to run into that. Certainly, the school district is going to have a certain level of credential that you have to have, and if you don't have it, then it's out of the way. But one of the things I did some years ago, probably 25 years ago, was I was actually hired by the Central Arizona Community College, it was called, in near Winkleman is where it was, and the campus. And what they did is they hired me to be a square dance caller by the semester. And I had a degree. I had already finished a degree, but not a graduate degree, and nor had I had a teaching certificate. But because it was through a community college, I could be hired as an instructor without teaching credentials. I don't know if Hawaii is that way or Michigan is that way, but it was a community college, and I was hired as an auxiliary instructor. They had some wording that it was, and I was lecturer, so yeah, that's a sort of professional lecturer or an instructor or something, some level of teaching expertise lower than professor, assistant professor, that sort of thing, and it worked. It was the people who came to this square dance came to the lessons. They paid the college. They didn't pay me. At the end of the term, the college sent me a check for here's the number of people you had, and here's your piece of it. And that went on for, 3 or 4 terms like that. And pretty soon, the mines in San Manuel closed down and everybody left. So we didn't have the group anymore. But, yeah. Okay, Roy?
Roy Gotta from New Jersey. A couple ways around the teaching certificate. Once again, most schools allow you to bring in a guest lecturer for a one-day program. Who says that they can't bring in the same guest lecturer for 3 or 4 weeks in a row? 1 day a week. We've managed to squeeze that a couple of times. 2, you might want to try contacting. We give you contact Tom Miller. Most people know can get his stuff from the CALLERLAB office. He teaches a thing in the schools in Pennsylvania, and I know for a fact Tom does not have a teaching certificate, doesn't have a college degree, but somehow that it works. So you might want to ask him. The other thing is, if you have a college degree, most states you can get a teaching certificate, a substitute teaching certificate, if you have, I think, usually a minimum of 30 college credits. In New Jersey, if you just have 30 college credits, you can get a substitute teaching certificate for a minimal amount of money, $50 filing fee. And, of course, they can simply hire you as a substitute teacher.
Yeah. Well, it's a way around the problem. Possibly something like that might be available in Maui if you could investigate further. Could you be a substitute teacher? Could you be an instructor through are there community colleges over there? Are you going through, like in Maui, are you going through the elementary and high schools? All that. Now, do they have a program where they could hire? Yeah. You don't have the manpower to do it. Yeah. Oh, but yeah, more people to come to the beginner dance leader parties. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
As a bit of an answer to that, I know because I was involved in a lot of work preparing to help Campbell again. It has a project going on about contacting colleges and universities that teach teachers. Colleges of education, schools of education, whatever they call them. I've provided him a list of about 1,200 in the nation. In the U.S. I didn't go beyond the U.S., even though I'm Canadian. And now this is going to go forward with the next step, and they're going to try and get, find the dance leader, the whatever, to get square dancing done as part of this. Something else, I talk to a lot of people. I'm chairman of the research committee, in case anybody cares. I was talking to Mike Callahan this morning, who is chairman of the Calling in Schools committee. And he mentioned an organization that I'm going to do some research on and find out if there's others. And he says it's Young Audiences Incorporated. And he works through them. He calls in schools a lot. Now, he's in the Rochester, Syracuse area of New York. And he is constant. I see him on Facebook all the time, calling to 700 kids here and 500 kids there and all this kind of stuff. He is so busy. And he says he works through this Young Audiences Incorporated. And what it is some kind of outfit that has, he says they have a pool of young artists. They have, square dance callers and painters and whatevers, and then they'll take, but he works through them, and the schools contact them and say, we need to do stuff, and he works with them to get through the schools. So he doesn't have to go around to contact all the schools himself. They do it for him. So that might be, so he just signed up with them, and it's given him all kinds of work. So if you're looking to calling into schools, there's, like I said, I'm going to be doing some looking into this for Mike and see if there's some other organization around. But there's a couple of things from both ends of it. There is some stuff going on in CALLERLAB to try and get square dancing into community colleges to teach the teachers, and there's something else for callers to try and get into schools.
Well, there's a possibility. We're not going to solve all the problems of the world at one time. Here this afternoon, but there's certainly a possibility. It's an organization. It sounds to me like a kind of a booking agency that you hook up with, and they book you to do this, that, or the other in this school, that school, the other school. Yeah. Okay. One more time.
Crawshaw from California. Did you try going to your parents' organization, whether it's PTA or PTO? Parent-teacher organization or parent-teacher association, or that to find parents that volunteer to the school that they can teach. If you have lesson plan recorded material that they could use, that they could implement, not learn how to call, because that's going to take them too long to do, but if you have a teaching set, whether it be Sikorsky's tape or one of the other videotapes that are out, that they can help the teacher within the PE class or whatever to be able to do, and try to work it through your parent-teacher organization, whatever you have there. I don't know if you've approached them or not, because schools use volunteers, and this may be a way of getting some more manpower. You give them a little bit of expertise, enough to kill themselves, but that's okay. A little bit of expertise to be able to play the tape and explain a little bit of your lesson plan type thing.
And that might be a way to, because the other part of your issue was getting people to help. You put on this seminar with some experts, brought them over to Maui, set it all up, and one person showed up. This is possibly a way you could sweet talk, if you will, coerce, whatever the case may be, other people into getting it, and it comes at using this method Norm talked about is it's not going to be quite as official sounding as attending a seminar and learning to become this and learning how to do this and learning how to do that. You would just simply learn a few little things that will kind of get you through. And maybe that would be the level of expertise that some people would be they'd be willing to go through the effort to obtain that level of expertise, but not to go through the effort to come to an all-day or all-weekend seminar. You might be able to look people in the eye and say, "Here we got some tapes. You can listen to these tapes and follow this material that we prepared, and within an hour or two, you could be ready to work with a 7th grade class at your school with the material that you've got. It's not going to be a huge amount of material. It'll be smaller amount, but at least you'll be able to get them doing something quickly rather than a lot later on. Yeah.
Olson, Michigan. Is it possible to get PE teachers to teach the same thing, and they have a certain amount of time? If they could do it all during the same time and have an all-school square dance that you could call on the things that they had been taught in their school? Say you have 10 schools all come together at a certain time and have an all-school square dance with a different caller rather than their PE teachers.
Yeah, okay. David Fullaway again from Maui. A lot of things are going on here. The seminar that we're going to present on Maui was credited by the state of Hawaii to give 2 credits of B credits for accreditation for continuing teaching, continuing education in Hawaii. It was a full-on basic beginning party dance seminar for teachers to teach, and so that's and we can conduct that again. If I got the interest, we could conduct that again. What I need to find and want to promote and put out is how do we get more people from each state, not only from Maui, I'd like 10 from Maui, but from each state, from each area, to come to a seminar that already exists here at CALLERLAB, approved and going, and get them to come and learn how to do this and go back to their communities and do it. And we've got the training here already, and I'm on both. I'm on the Calling in Schools Committee, and I'm on CCTD Committee also, and we've been working on this for 15 years, Cal and I, and other people. So, but what I'm trying to get is get a message out to communicate with all these clubs that want to revitalize, and I liked Betsy's talk this morning on how to revitalize, how to communicate, email, letter, phone, build it up, communicate within your community. But as you're communicating, I'd like to see more people coming to this beginning seminar. I talked to Bob Rigg just like coming here. I said, Bob, are you going to be ready for 500 people signing up next year? Because every meeting I go to at this CALLERLAB, I'm going to somehow tie in this problem of we've got a program but we're not using it, and we're not using it because of a lack of shift yet. But we're going to shift, and it's coming. I'd like other ideas on how to shift.
Pam Clasper again. I don't have a brilliant idea on how to shift on this right now, but I do see sort of one of the immediate problems as to why you're not getting people, and I'm sure it's money. I mean, there's word out there. We can get word out to the schools. I'm also on the marketing committee, and I know Mike Hogan is very keen on various types of marketing and various places to target. Roy's done so much work on the You Too Can Dance website. We've got it out places. We're hopefully getting it out more and more places, getting people interested. But to get somebody to come to this weekend event, I mean, the cost is minimal for the event. It's only $50. But then there's transportation and there's hotel costs. And these days, those are getting more and more prohibitive. So somehow, and this is where I don't have the brilliant ideas, but we've got to convince the schools or the organizations that this is a worthwhile thing for the teachers and possibly help get the teachers funding to come and do it. Because, people can't always take the time off. Usually it would mean traveling on a Friday, so they've got to take a day off work or whatever, because I don't believe this is a spring break in the U.S. on the Friday. It's often this week that we're in right now. So that's, I think, something, we need some pretty bright heads to try and put together, and that might be an issue. If we can overcome that, I think that could be a stumbling block, and if somebody can sort of come up with an idea for that. Are you scratching, or you got something to say, Roy? I thought so too.
You need to talk to Cal or Betsy. Roy Gotta from New Jersey. And there's the organization in place in the States, AFERTS. I forget what it stands for, American Association of Physical Education and Recreational Dance Teachers, something like that. And it's a national organization, but they have regional conferences. They're like teacher conferences where people set up booths and this and that and everything. And Betsy, there was one in New Jersey this year on a date that Betsy could actually do it. And so they said, sure, they're always looking for presenters. They're begging for presenters because they just run out of stuff. So sure, and then she came down and she had her booths, whatever, set up. And, of course, it was new, so she was in a back corner, and it was across from something else, and it was horribly attended. But she did manage at one point to get it like a square, and they thoroughly enjoyed it. They asked her to come back next year when it's in a different part of the state and everything else, but they're saying, and what she did is she just goes down and says, here's resources available to you as opposed to those crappy 78 records that you have. Some of them we're still using. And here's what we do. Here's how it's done. And here's handouts on where you can get training if you want it. Here's DVDs you can buy. Here are where you can buy more modern records with dance routines so you don't have to be the caller. But it's out there, and it's AFERTS. Cal Campbell is the person to see about. And there's money from CALLERLAB to subsidize you if you have to travel to do one of these presentations. But this organization is begging for people to present at their regional and national conferences, and they love having people like Square Dance callers do that.
Well, there's a minor solution to the problem you brought up of money. If it's a regional conference, you don't have to travel from New York all the way over to Los Angeles to go. It might be a travel from New York to Nashville. And so the travel time is lower, the money to get there is lower, the amount of hotels time you need to spend is lower. And again, here's Pam mentioned a group which was like I described as a sort of booking agency for school work, for working in schools. Young Audiences Incorporated. You go through them, and if they have regional seminars or if they have national meetings, that there may be one coming close, in a theater near you, in the near future, so you could go to that one, and you can work through these larger agencies rather because of what it sounds like you're doing, and possibly a lot of other people are doing it, is going directly to a school. But if you could go to an organization that had access, communication-type access to a large number of schools, or as Roy pointed out, to a large number of physical education teachers in a school, you might be able to get the word out to a whole lot more people, a whole lot quicker, and for a whole lot less money. And did Bessie have to pay for this booth that she did, or what was it like?
No, there was no entrance fee or anything for her. She had to submit a request to be a presenter, and Cal has all the right words and everything, and she submitted that, and they said fine, and then CALLERLAB reimbursed her for all her travel expenses.
Pam Clasper again. Cal actually, my husband's on the board, so I was in the board meeting yesterday afternoon, and Cal actually gave a bit of a report, and there's 6 areas in the country. AFERT is divided up into 6 areas in the country, apparently. He's a little concerned because apparently they're considering dropping the dance part, but that's not a done deal. And he does have people presenting at, I think, at least 4, if not 5, of the 6 conferences that are going to be happening this year. So rather than I know it's a wonderful idea to get everybody here to CALLERLAB to the Beginner Dance Party Leader Seminar, but, going the AFERT route, I wasn't thinking of it until Roy mentioned it, which is great. Going that route, you might still accomplish the same thing. I understand why you want people to come. It's a wonderful seminar. My husband attends it. He's been attending it for the last 5 years and gets a lot out of it. But you may still get the result you want and get the help you need for your schools going this other route. because it does. And as Roy says, there is funding for it. That is one of the things that the foundation is doing, is to try and promote square dancing in the schools via this way. So there is funding for these people to go. Bob Riggs, I know, is doing one of them next year. I forget who the others are, but you're doing one. That's right. Your name came up. Yes, you're doing one. So you know about these things. So, like I say, it's nice to get everybody here, but particularly these days with fuel costs and everything else going skyrocketing the way they are, it might be more realistic to go the other route.
Okay, so we have a whole lot of ideas on what you brought up to start with. We talked first of all about dealing with difficult people and dealing with getting into schools. And I think the general consensus seems to be, Roy came up with the organization and Pam came up with an organization, is instead of going to an individual school, go to a group that represents many schools or many teachers. Find teachers' conferences and that sort of thing. We can get to go to one place and hit a whole lot of, get more bang for the buck, if you will. In the advertising world, I think they talk about dollars per person who's going to watch. And if you pay $50 for an ad and 10 people watch it, you'd be much more likely to spend $50 for an ad if 500 people watched it. So if you went to a group that represented schools or represented teachers or represented areas of schools, the Northeast School District Association or something. You could go to an organization like that, if there even is one. Research it around and see if there's maybe an association of associations is what it would be, and you can get to a whole lot of people real quick. And get the word out to these people. Take your material there and take your lesson plans there and point out to them. I think that's going to be the name of the game for getting into schools, because one person going to one school, I know people who did it, and it worked for a little while, but then it sort of fizzled out. But if you get to large groups at the same time with the same message, that'd be the way to go. Is there any other issue that we have? We had the dealing with difficult people, dealing with getting into schools and getting people involved with the beginner dance party group. Is there any other issue that somebody has, a separate issue besides those two that you want to talk about? You want to bring up? It doesn't matter. It's a soapbox, so I'll just hand the microphone to you, and you're off and running. Anybody? Roy, do you have an issue? Yeah. Go right ahead.
According to the sheet, it doesn't even have to be discussion. It's just event. And one of our soapboxes is, I'm tired of people being negative. If anybody says to me, well, in the good old days, shut up. All right? These are the good old days, And the people who are saying the good old days, I'm sorry, they weren't dancing. And they talk about, we used to have 20 this, we used to have 30 that. Forget it. Deal in reality. The good news is we're still here. There's nothing wrong with our product. And there's so many positive things. So when anybody says something about, this is declining, shut up. All right? Do you have a club? Yeah. Well, do something to keep it. Talk about what a great time you have. But it's, the focus has been so much in the last 10 years on, the decline of this, the decline of that. There's been a decline of everything. And lots of things have disappeared. We haven't. We are still here. Some clubs are even thriving. Some clubs are dying, sure, but then again, some bowling alleys are closing up too. And others are doing well. You see a boarded-up movie theater. Across the street, you see a brand-new megaplex. Whatever. So, and, my soapbox is quit focusing on the negative. There's so much good. And without changing a darn thing, all right, I'm not against change, but don't be saying, we got to do this and we got to do that. Well, what we got to do is just keep being and be upbeat. Because every negative thought or any negative thing you say somehow gets to somebody else. Somehow gets to somebody, and that's all they hear. You could say 30 positive things, and you say one negative thing. What's the one thing they're going to remember? Oh, yeah, we love square dance. Well, it's not what it used to be. Don't say that. Just say we love what we do. And so that's my soapbox.
Any other venting that anybody would like to do? It's certainly an item that comes up. I guess all of your mothers and grandmothers used to say, if you can't say something good, don't say nothing at all. And it really works because why, especially if you're talking to people who might come out for lessons or might come out to your club to dance already square dance. They might come out to your club to dance with your group. Whether you're the caller or you're a dancer in the group, the first thing they hear out of your mouth is, well, things aren't like they used to be. Well, why do I want to join a group like that? You have fun? Oh, yeah, we have a lot of fun. And then just start with that. We go out every Wednesday. This is where we dance. This is how the time we do it. This is where there's other places we go. We go with other people. We go to other places. We get to travel around. We know people all over the world, basically, who have the same skill we do. And anywhere we go, So these are a lot, just like Roy says. Dealing with negatives is easy, I suppose, because you can always say something crummy about. You can always come up with something crummy, but try to come up with something that's the positive about the activity, about square dancing, about your club, about your caller, whoever it may be, your caller's wives. A very important part of the whole organization. Well, we have three. You're chairman of the Partners Committee, aren't you, Janet? Okay, there's a chairman of the Partners Committee. You can see we have, and we did a show of hands a little while ago. There were more partners here than there were callers. Who is it that thinks this is something we need to talk about? I've had callers talk about things too, but the partners are here to, because they're the support, the big time support. Any other people who want to just vent? We got time yet? We got an open mic. Janet, please say something. Yeah. Name and where you're from.
Janet Oliveri, Denver, Colorado. I just want to build on what Roy said to give you some idea of how the negative word spreads. It does. And it doesn't spread locally. We were talking to someone back east, and they wanted to know what was happening in our council that they had heard about. And this was clear across the country. And it's like, how did you find out about that? Well, so-and-so told so-and-so, and so-and-so told so-and-so. So the negative things really do spread like wildfire. And so the more you can douse those fires, the better off we are.
And keep in mind, you may have heard this term before, negative ambassador. People, we used to talk about this. We talk about it still, about people who come to a square dance and they want to learn to dance and they don't have a good time. For whatever reason they don't have a good time, they don't have a good time. Then you have just created at least one negative ambassador, somebody who doesn't have a good impression of dancing for whatever reason it may be. The club, the hall, the time, the date, the floor, the heat, the cold, whatever it may be. They have a negative idea about square dancing. And it's the sort of thing that can happen with people downplaying or down-talking, as Roy has said, well, things aren't like they used to be. Well, people are going to say, well, if they aren't like they used to be, maybe they're not as good as we'd really like to have, so maybe we'll go bowling. Or we'll play another round of golf, whatever it may be, but we're not going to get involved with a square dance group. Yes?
Pam Klasper again. Marketers have sort of done studies over the years, and this is over everything, not just over square dancing. If somebody really likes something, they might tell one person. If they don't like something, they'll tell at least 10 people.
Yes. That's what it is. And what have you done? You've done, because you come up with something negative, you said something negative, somebody picked up on it, and like Pam says, 10 other people are going to hear the same thing. And now you've got 10 negative ambassadors. You want negative ambassadors or positive ambassadors? And I think the answer is positive. Any other venting anybody would like to do? Have any other? Roy just said, I want to vent. Okay? That's what we're here for. Vent. And this is being taped, of course. That's why I keep running back and forth with the mic, because I want to get everybody's comments on the microphone. So it's being taped. And we got a couple of more minutes yet. So we're going to 10, 12 minutes go. Here we go. Name it again.
I don't want to vent. Oh, Olson from Michigan. When we teach the classes, we really try to prepare them for some of the things they might run into. We can't control all the people or people from other classes, but if I'm prepared for something that might be negative, I can handle it. It's just when it's like a slap in the face and I'm not prepared for it at all, I can't handle it. But if you tell them maybe some of the things that they might run into and talk against cliques and talk against negative and talk against things that might happen, because they're scared when they come out. And I don't know whether she said back there, with the roof falls down, the new dance will think it's their fault. But if you can prepare these people for the things that might happen when they come out into the square dance world, it really helps a lot.
Yeah, and preparing for the, you may hear people say this, you may hear people say that, but it's really not true. They're just people who are grumbling for whatever reason. Some people just like to grumble. And I think you have to consider the source in a lot of cases. You have to be cautious about who is doing the grumbling, and is this a person who's going to grumble no matter what? And we talk about dwindling membership right now. For the past 5 years, I've been it's called an association manager. It's a secretary-treasurer type of position with a bowling association. 6,400 members, 120, 130 leagues, 11 bowling centers, 7 tournaments every year. And every year for the past 5 years, and I've only been involved for 5 years, every year for the past 5 years, membership has dropped anywhere from 2 to 3%. Every single year for the past 5. Now, that can't go on for very long before we start having real big problems. And bowling proprietors particularly are always looking for new ways to bring people into the bowling community. And sometimes they become members of the association, and sometimes they don't. But they're always looking for new ways, and one of the ways they do it is they have parties. They send letters to corporations and all the businesses in this one area and say, we're having a bowling party, free bowling for 3 hours. We'll give everybody 2 slices of pizza and a Coke. And they throw it out there, and it's like the freebie lesson that we used to all give. The first 2 or 3 lessons was free, and you had food, and you had drinks and camaraderie with all the people in the club. It's just a matter of what kind of advertising is going to work for you. But dwindling membership is certainly a problem. But it's not a problem that you have to look at and say, oh, boy, we're dropping membership again. But what you can say is, well, we still got a lot of really good members. It's the same thing, but it's a positive way to say it rather than a negative way to say it. Any other comments by anybody? Comments? Vents? Any venting? We have a guest from VIP from, you folks are the National Convention, aren't you? No? Well, go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us where you're from.
I'm Jim Masco from San Diego, California. We're dancers from the San Diego area involved in national organizations, but not any specific one for this convention. But one thing that maybe might help Dave in Hawaii is there is Square Dance 101, which is a program of CDs with upbeat music that can be handed to a teacher, and they can put it into their CD player and play it. There's a lesson plan with it. They were actually created by the California Square Dance Council with a grant from the Arts, the Alliance Around Traditional Square Dance, back in 2004. That is available. It can be found through the Arts website, arts-dance.org. So if you want to look for that, that might be something that might help.
Is that something you have already investigated and you've got a copy of it? There you go. Well, so it's something you've already looked at. But again, I think if the name of the game is to take it, for instance, not to a single school or to even a single school district, but to large groups of people who represent schools and represent school districts or kinds of teachers. All the PE teachers in the country belong to this organization. Go to them and go to their trade organization. Like if you want to sell something to callers, would you go to an individual club while that caller is calling and say, here's what I've got to sell? Or would you come to CALLERLAB? Or would you come to the National Convention? They're all there at one time. And that's the same thing with the school thing. This was created by the California Square Dance Council in California for Californians, and it's available apparently to anybody who wants to buy it, or free. You just download it, or what do you do? Oh, okay. But if there's going to be a charge, I'm sure it'll be a minimal charge because it's for the good of dancing in general. Round, traditional, square, whatever it may be, it's for the good of dancing in general. So there's another resource that we can all take a look at. You could take a look at particularly, or anybody else who wants to be involved in teaching and working and dancing in schools. Yeah. Any other comments? Got one more? There we go. Is this a new issue, or is it just a comment on?
Have you gone to the university in Hawaii? Have you talked to their physical education department? Music handles dance. Okay. Did you get any effort out of them to help push something as far as into your grade school teachers?
Okay, we've got the two speakers closer together. They can hand the mic back and forth so we get it all on tape. Go ahead.
Okay, Dave, I don't want to continue to put negative against it. I just am saying a couple of these things because it shows you the complexities state by state. Every state is different. Every area is different, and there's things facing everything. But there are ways of overcoming it. And yes, unfortunately, the music head of music department at the University of Hawaii was a ballroom dancer, and he looked at teaching square dancing in schools as competition to ballroom dancing. But he is gone now, and I'm going to be going back down to the University of Hawaii and reopening the issue with them. So I keep trying all the different venues I can, and I've got some good ideas. As she was talking about money, I was starting to write down ideas of where money can come from and how to start approaching it. And she talked about being the person who does the statistics, and I thought of a couple more things that we need a little more statistics on. And hopefully, as I do all this, I make this stuff available to Cal and the rest of CALLERLAB and USA West. And eventually, this whole thing is going to come together. Shift and change is coming, and this is all part of it.
Okay, one more question. Don't run. Norm Crossell from California. The State Board of Education, have you gone to them?
Okay, they flew away, Maui, and yes, I went to the State Board of Education, and as I said, I presented to them a series of lesson plans and got them accredited by the state of Hawaii only, not by all other states, as a 2-credit B credit continuing education for teachers, which means they were actually, if they come to a seminar paid to $250, they would have had 2 credits towards their continuing education. And that was really cheap credits as far as going to school. So when you start talking about money and paying for it, teachers now in almost every state have to go through continuing education, and you ought to know this as people when you start talking up. Sending people to training and getting people in your community to learn how to call square dancing, especially teachers. And I'm especially interested in getting teachers to teach because I believe that's where you get the biggest bang for your dollar, is where teachers are. And that's why we have the 1,200 schools now. 1,200 schools in America teach teachers. And we're going to approach a number of them in this year and see if we can't generate more work. But I'm getting more ideas all the time from what you're saying, and I'm writing them down in my book, and I will sure follow through. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm glad to see that people are getting ideas. Pam's come up with some wonderful ideas, and Roy with the business of there's funding available from CALLERLAB for some of the things that you might be doing. I hope you came up with some good ideas to maybe help with your dealing with difficult people problem. There's so many issues we could go on and on for the next 12 years probably. But again, try to be, like Roy said, try to be as positive about everything as you can. For instance, if when you were asked about this seminar, instead of saying, well, there were only 20 people there. Oh, we had well, what was it, 15 people we have here. Instead of saying that there were only 15 people here, you say, we had 15 people there, and they were really great. We had that whole people, everybody was participating and passed the microphone all over the place. It says the same thing, but it says it in a positive way rather than a negative way. Callers who are teaching, it's always better to teach how to do something rather than how not to do something. Here's the mistakes I know you're going to make, so I want to tell you all about them now. They'll make them, but you just be positive about the way you teach it. Okay, one more comment?
This isn't a comment. This is even another subject, and this is for Janet. Several years ago, we went to CALLERLAB, and we got there, and the CALLERLAB had set up 1, 2, or 3 excursions out of the hotel for people who wanted them. Some partners that didn't want to get involved, that wanted to go on trips. We noticed that there's none this year. There was none last year. We would like to go to the Hoover Dam and take a look at it and see it, but no. And so I bring up the possibility of having excursions in future CALLERLAB meetings.
I think that might be something. The Board of Governors has at least one, if not two, maybe three, Board of Governor informals. Are there two this year? One today, one tomorrow. That would be, to me, I think that the forum for you to present that would be at that Board of Governor informal. Say, hey, we used to do this, and a lot of people got involved, and we don't do it anymore. So can we at least explore? Because I know the National Convention has these side trips, and there are trail-in dances and trail-end dances and side trips here, there, and everywhere. And there's probably no reason other than, as Pam says, money, why it might not be possible here. But that Board of Governor informal, I think that would be the place to go. 10:30 tomorrow morning, is the one from today is done? Okay. The only one left is 10:30 tomorrow morning in one of these cubbyhole rooms that we've been assigned to. Okay? Thank you very much for coming. I really do appreciate you coming out. We had like two people in here for the first minute and a half, and I thought, well, we're going to have a lively discussion between the three of us here. So, did you have a comment? One last final? No? Okay, good. Well, thank you very much for coming. I appreciate it. Remember on your CALLERLAB critique sheets for the convention, if you liked it and you'd like it to be continued, please put that on your convention sheet and let the Board of Governors know. And because I do know for a fact that the Board of Governors reads, the EC, I know at least the EC sees them all, and they may pass them around to all the rest of the people on the board, but at least the EC physically takes and reads every one of those critiques to make sure. There you go. As the wife, as the partner of a board member, we have testimonial.
We ran a session for 3 years after what I put in my critique sheet one time. So.
Well, there you go. Yeah, I remember. There was a session. What was it called? Dealing with dancers with declining abilities, which is an item that you may take a look at that one for your. They were 3 years. They weren't boxed. They weren't recorded. Oh, bummer. Hold on.
Sorry, in reference to the critiques, the executive committee is required to read every single critique that's turned in. The home office makes copies. They go to every member of the executive committee. They are required to read every one of them before the next EC meeting, which is in 6 weeks.
And there's your forum. Number one, to the Board of Governor informals for all these issues that you have, but bring them up there. Dave, your issue, the Board of Governor informals, I think that's the place to go. You were? Go again. Go again. It couldn't hurt, right? But use that critique sheet. It's very important. I know, like Leroy says, it's not only that they do read them, they're required to read them. This is part of the rules that they operate by. So they read them all, and if you like this sort of thing, you'd like to see it happen again, you've enjoyed yourself today and had think I had a chance to say something I might not have had a chance to say anywhere else, then put it on your critique sheet and enjoy the rest of the convention. I hope you have a good time. Thanks for coming today. Appreciate it a lot, everybody. Thank you.